Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another amazing episode of Conversation with Freedom. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Potrine Muzumba from Lusaka, Zambia. Potrine, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Freedom. It's my pleasure.
For someone who never heard of Potrine Muzumba, please tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so firstly, I would actually love to explain what my name means because it's not
Y-
very common. So most people usually wonder what's the meaning of Potrine.
Yeah, yeah.
So in simpler terms, Potrine means a knowledgeable person. And
Hmm.
Muzumba in my local language here is a self-reliant plant that grows after the harvesting has been done and then it grows on its own.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, so
Wow.
my
Yeah.
name is Potrine Muzumba, and I'm a final year educational psychology student from the University of Zambia, the biggest institution in the country. And
Wow.
I'm pursuing a bachelor's in educational psychology, minoring in mathematics. I'm a
Oh,
podcaster. Yeah,
wow.
my podcast is called My Paramount Mental Health Hub, whose aim is to raise mental health awareness, strengthen advocacy, as well as eradicating all negative stereotypes around mental health. I'm also an advocate for mental health. Yeah, I think for now that's enough.
Yeah. When did it all begin? I mean,
So,
no, I mean, before that, can you share with us some of your childhood memories growing up in Lusaka, Zambia?
okay, so growing up, so actually home is in the other province, southern part of the country.
Okay.
So here in Lusaka, I'm here for school, but I've been here, I think, for the past 5 years.
Mm.
Yes, from the time I completed grade 12. So, well, my childhood was very, it had its own ups and downs, I can
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
The whole lot of my primary school was very interesting. I
Mm.
went to a private school within my locality and everything was okay. But then I think when I wrote my grade 7 and went to grade 8, I went to a boarding school. So, change in environment, friends, new company and everything,
Yeah.
adjusting was very difficult for me. So I kind of became a bit isolated and withdrawn. So it was difficult for me to blend in or fit in, finding which people I'm supposed to, you know. I was very, can I say primitive? I used to cry a lot. Yeah, I think I've always been very emotional.
Mhm.
So I remember one time crying in grade 8 because my teacher put me to sit with a boy on a desk. How petty, right? And
Yeah.
I cried so terribly. And I remember my friends wondering, why are you crying? And I couldn't stop crying until my teacher separated me from that person. Yeah, so we were at my grade 9, and then I think by then I had learned how to socialize with a few friends here and there.
Mm.
Grade 10, fast forward, grade 12, we wrote our exams, but in grade 12, it was kind of difficult because I had a certain encounter with my physics teacher, whose
What
name I won't
happened?
mention. They were just summarizing issues, and they were all contaminated with lies and whatnot. And then you find yourself tangled within these issues, and you really just don't
Mm.
know what to do about it. And it was, to me, it came as if it was a threat because I felt like I was being threatened to say or confess something that I didn't do. So it
Mm.
was yeah, it was very painful. I think I was very disturbed in grade 12. So this teacher would call me, just tell us the truth because if you don't, I'm going to call your parents. I'm like, what do you mean I tell you? I can't tell you something I didn't do. And then
Oh.
she kept on insisting. So it became very difficult for me even to learn in class because it got to a point where if she's teaching in class, she would always speak on me. Or if I try
Mm.
to compare myself to say, I think the mistake I've made, even other people have made it, and then she would be very mad at me. So most of the times, instead of me learning, whenever it was her period, I would be doing some piecework. She would give me some punishments and whatnot. So I think I got tired. I started missing classes a lot. And then again, that made her mad. She was like, why is this girl absconding my classes?
Oh.
So the threats continued to come. No, we report you to your parents. I'm like, okay, it looks like you failed to call my parents, so let me do it. So I went to one of the cleaners of the school at the dormitories and just asked for his phone. And I was already crying as a crybaby.
Oh,
And I asked for his phone and I called my dad and I'm telling him, I was just crying. He's asking me, what's wrong with you? And I can't talk. I'm just telling him, just come and get me. I don't want to be in this place anymore. And
oh,
so, without wasting time, my dad had arrived within a short period of time. And before I knew it, someone came to call me, no, you're wanted at the administration. And I went there and, I couldn't talk. I was just crying and now I'm holding my father.
mm,
And then they called for a meeting, and you are in the disciplinary committee. There are 45 teachers, and I'm the only pupil. And my only defense at this point in time is my father, and I'm holding him so tight. I couldn't let go. So they're
oh,
asking what really happened, and I couldn't explain. So the teacher herself started explaining what had happened, and then she was there defending herself and explaining what happened. So when they asked me, so what do you want us to do? And I said, I just want to leave this place
wow,
because I felt like, yeah, I didn't want. We had already signed for our final exams.
okay,
So my dad was like, no, you can't. You're already in your second term. You're only remaining with one term next year. Next term, you'll be writing your final exam. So why don't you hold on a little longer so that once you write and then you're going out for good. But
mm,
I just couldn't take it anyway. I said, no, I can still go and learn elsewhere and then come and sit for my final exams here.
mm,
And then my dad knew that this was serious. So, fast forward, I think they just had to change as the teacher because also the deputy couldn't allow me to leave the school. They said, no, if you feel you
yeah,
can't learn from her, then we can change you and allocate you another teacher. So that's how we were changed. But then I had already developed hatred for the subject. I lost interest. I wasn't performing so
oh.
well. Yeah, so fast forward, we wrote our grade 12 exams, and lucky enough, I still passed the subject, but it was still the lowest.
Oh,
Yeah. So after grade 12, when the results came out, we were so excited, and everyone's been telling us about natural sciences. You know how every child's dream is almost to study medicine, like everyone. It's like,
mm,
I don't know, it's like all prestige has been attached to the medical career, and these other careers are just overlooked. So everyone was like, no, I'm going to study medicine. I'm going to study medicine. Okay, time for applying came, and we applied. And to my surprise, when the list came out, I was allocated to a program I didn't apply for. So what happens here at the University of Zambia, you are given three choices. So you pick your first choice from a
yeah,
different school, your second choice from a different school, and yeah. So for me, I only had two choices in the School of Natural Sciences and the School of Humanities. But then I wasn't picked in any of the schools. I was
mm,
picked in the School of Education to study educational psychology with before that we had not chosen our minors yet. So then I was wondering, it's something when you are in high school, the
yeah,
only careers you possibly hear is medicine, there's
yeah,
law, there's
true.
teaching, there's nursing, there's these other programs, demography, what not speak of. You not even have, you not hear much of them. And then someone tells me you're going to study psychology, something that has never crossed my mind.
Mm,
And I don't know how I was supposed to take that, but it was a blow. So I just told my parents, I'm not going
oh,
to own that.
really?
I had already made my decision. I was so quick. I told them I'm not going to own that because I'm not going to be able to study that. I don't know what psychology is, and I don't even have the passion for it. But
Mm,
then my dad kept on encouraging me. No, it's not a bad program, but because the fees are quite high here, so when we applied for bursaries to be put on government loan, I was given 100% bursary. I'm like,
mm.
why are all things directing me into the direction that I don't want? What's happening? And I still said,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going. And my parents were like, no, you've been given bursary. There's sponsorship for you, so you have to go because we don't
Oh,
have the money to sponsor you for other programs that you want. because initially I had applied to at other universities and I was accepted in the programs that I wanted, but then I wasn't given sponsorship. So
Mm.
here at UNZA, where I was accepted in the program that I didn't want to do, is where I was given sponsorship. So now there was a puzzle to solve. I didn't want, trust me. I cried about it so many times, prayed to
Yeah.
God that maybe things would change. And I remember my dad calling some of the family members to encourage me, my aunt to tell me, no, it's not a bad program. Actually, in first year, since you have mathematics, you can go and when you clear in first year, if you clear in first year all your courses, you're given a chance to pick a program or to move to the school to which you want. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was
Mm.
that
I
was
know
my
what you're
only
saying.
comfort.
Yeah.
That was my only comfort, and I was really excited. And when we came here, we started to study, and then I remember having some of my courses in that had to do with language development. Some of it had to do with human development from conception to adolescence, and so many of them in psychology. And those are the two that really like started to generate interest in me because even in high school, I loved biology. So anything that had to do with biology, it was the only thing that kept me even studying. I loved the brain. So when
Mm.
we're introduced to the brain, its physicalities, the functions, and now trying to understand behaviors, interest was coming a little bit, but then I was still convincing myself I'm not going to be interested in this program because I have to change. I have to change at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And when we wrote our exams, I had five courses. Fortunately enough, I cleared all of them. And I was like, oh, God has answered my prayer. So now I'll be switching.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'll be
then did
switching
you
to my
quit?
program. No, no, this is what happened. So a lot of people wanted to change their programs and go to the School of Natural Sciences. So there
Mm.
wasn't enough space in the School of Natural Sciences. So it was
Mm.
difficult. And then the dean told us to say, um, if you switch your programs, you're at risk of losing your sponsorship. So if you lose your
Mm.
sponsorship, then it means you will have to be sponsoring yourself. And once you lose your bursary, you can't. It's very difficult, almost impossible to get it back. So, it became just, again, it was like I've been put back into my depression once again. And that was a very sad moment for me. I was really sad. I didn't know what to do, and I'm asking God, so do I have to continue with something that I don't love? Like, what's all this? It doesn't make sense. And then along the way, I think psychology started making sense to me because I think the things that were unanswered in my childhood, the emotions that I used to pack, because I was this child that bottled up issues. I would,
Mm.
I would not, open up so much to anyone and tell them what I'm going through. So if something happens to me, I'll just go somewhere alone, cry myself out.
Mm.
And because I never spoke to anyone, the frustration and the anger was so much in me. And actually, other people still called me up to now. I think others still call me brutally honest
Mm.
because I don't pretend. If I see something wrong with you, I'll just say freedom. I don't like that, and I'll call it by its name. I'll call it by its name, and for some, it's very difficult to accept the truth. So some
Yeah.
of them, despite it being the truth, they don't like they didn't like the approach. So I was called antisocial, brutally honest, rude,
Mm.
and all those things. Yeah. But then psychology started to make sense because then I started understanding how the mind works,
Mm.
how
Mm.
emotions that have been kept can, generate anger, frustration in someone, how our childhood experiences shape who we become. So
Mm.
everything now started making sense. I'm like, oh, is this why I react the way I do? Oh, is this why I've been having challenges with this? So I started digging deeper, more than just what I was studying, more than my academics. I started to want to find out more about human behavior. And
Mm.
then I was now trying to understand. I'm looking at other people who I thought were rude as well and
Yeah.
frustrated. I'm like, probably they're not that bad. Maybe they just went through something that shaped their
Mm.
personality into whom they are today. So I was like, okay, let me just try to find
I'm
what
sorry.
I can do about it.
Potrine, I'm sorry to cut you. What kind of advice would you give to a parent raising a child who's like very difficult, who's hard to deal with? Like what kind of advice would you give to the parent?
So, in that case, psychologically, it's advised to correct wrong behaviors with love, if I
Mm,
can say that. Yeah, so because what happens when someone is given a label that they're a difficult child, they're very stubborn, they're whatnot, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. It gets to a point where they want to fit into the description that has been given to them by society or their families or whatnot.
mm,
Like if they call me stubborn, I'll become more stubborn. So bad behavior then becomes perpetual because you feel like no matter what I do, no one will look at me the other way. So instead
mm,
of correcting those bad behaviors with being rude or, scolding them, shouting at them, try to dig deep and find out what really is making them the way they are or what
mm,
is making them speak the way they do, react the way they do. Yeah, because I believe that to every response, there's a stimulation. So in
mm.
most of the cases, actually, sometimes even these very parents are the ones that cause that in their children and they don't realize it.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think, especially here in an African setup, a child is looked at as a miniature adult, not a full human being. You understand? So it's like
Mm,
whatever you say or whatever you feel doesn't really matter. So I advise that parents should take keen interest in the emotions of their children because when you push emotions of a child under a mat, then you get to those are the children who become very stubborn because you are an adult, right? So you have
mm,
more power than your child.
mm,
And because you shun them down, you shun their inclusivity, they can't ask anything, they can't speak anything, especially if you're an African. You are told you
mm.
can't answer back an adult. So
Yeah.
even if you are right, you have no freedom of speech, you can't express yourself. So no
True.
matter what happens to you, you just keep quiet. And then what do those children do? Because they can't project their anger on their parents, they'll go and project it on their fellow children who
Ish,
are the weaker
that's
people around them.
bad.
So these are children who start, being bullies to their friends because they're also being bullied, but they can't project
Mm,
their
mm,
emotions on the people that are frustrating them. So they project it on the weaker ones.
mm.
So it's very important to take keen interest in the emotions of the child, even if like there's nothing wrong with a parent apologizing to a child.
Yeah,
If you are a
yeah.
parent and you make a mistake, African parents will just brush it off like nothing happened. No, mommy, come and say sorry. And I think my I think my mother knows me for that. I'm one person who doesn't take a passage of time as an apology. And I think you've observed that there are people who are like that. They'll
Mm.
do something wrong to you and then they'll just keep quiet and maybe allow a passage of time to elapse and then come back thinking that
Yeah.
what they did is all in the past.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, for me, even if you go for 1 year, when you come back, take responsibility for what you did. Yes, take
You.
responsibility for what you did.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
yeah, so
Any, sorry,
mm-hmm. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know that you have a lot to share,
It's
and I've
okay.
been. I also have a lot that I want to ask. What kind of advice would you give? Because this is the question which I ask almost everyone who come on the podcast. What kind of advice
Okay.
would you give to that little boy or girl who's struggling, dealing with depression and anxiety? What kind of advice would you share to that boy or girl?
Okay, so in that instance, I usually always bring people back to the idea of self-awareness.
Mm,
So there are times when we question our identity, you really don't know who you are. You're trying to understand yourself and it's not making sense. And what's worse is that maybe even the people around you don't want to understand you. But if you can identify that one person who you can talk to and confide in, it's very
mm,
important because then you are able to open up and express yourself and you just don't know they say a problem shared is a problem half solved. So
mm.
by
Say
sharing
that
your
again.
problem with
Say
a
that again.
problem shared a problem shared is a problem half solved.
Mm.
So yes, when you share, when you open up with people, you don't know where exactly the help might come from, and sometimes the help comes in form of finding people who are actually going through the same things as we are going through.
Mm,
So in most cases, we don't open up, but the moment you open up to someone, you'll be shocked to find out that they're actually going through the same things, and there's a kind of comfort that comes with finding
mm,
out that so actually what I'm going through, this person is also suffering from it. So you'll be able to ask them, how are you dealing with this? How have you managed to do with this? And then once you are able to know about yourself, identify what triggers your anxiety, right?
mm,
Because sometimes we find ourselves in environments where we are constantly triggered, and then it becomes like, the brain, the ability of the brain to form new neural pathways. So
mm,
the neural pathways are formed by the frequency of in which the frequency in which behavior is
mm,
repeatedly done. So if something is concurrently done every time you're being frustrated, it then forms a neural pathway that will probably become a trait of your personality.
yeah,
So I usually I advise people to be aware of themselves and be able to identify who they really are, and also to be able to stand for themselves, because
mm,
trust me, this world is so cruel. So don't expect people to pick you up when you fall down. If anything, they'll come and step on you even more. So when you
mm,
realize that, yeah, it's actually okay to feel low sometimes, but it's wrong to stay in that situation for a very long time.
mm,
So allow yourself, identify the ways in which you're able to vent. How do you vent when you're frustrated? If you have to cry like me, cry, let it out, vent it out. And immediately after that, you're going to feel okay. The
mm,
problem is that people think that crying is a form of weakness. I think if it were a form of weakness, God would have not made that provision for us to be able to
mm.
cry. But
Wow.
especially men, I'm not
Yeah,
advising them to
yeah, yeah.
I'm not advising them to cry, but what I'm saying is you should be able to identify your ways of venting. Some people just meditate and they feel okay. Some people it's just music, they listen to that beautiful harmony and they're fine. Some people just want to take a stroll and just take a walk and they're okay. So just
Mm,
identify what makes you feel better and then be able to restart and focus. Otherwise, if you sit down on the ground, the world will come and trample on you once again.
mm.
So yeah, that's my advice.
Wow, you're so amazing.
Thank you.
Ah, any project that you're working on, or that any project that you're working on that you like to share with
Yeah,
us?
so I mentioned okay, yeah, so but first I think let me finish from where I stopped in
Okay.
second year after everything started making sense, and then I understood myself better. There was nothing more satisfying than getting to understand yourself better. It's like you found yourself once again.
Mm,
And it's in that moment that you begin to live life fully, because I felt fulfilled. It's like I
mm,
found my purpose. And from that time, I really just wanted to help people that probably could have been feeling the way I do feel. Maybe you come from a family where you don't really share issues, you just wake up, you greet each other, and off you go. You
mm,
don't even care what your sibling is going through. So for such people, I'm like, I think I can be of help if people can. So I last year I started a podcast. I started my podcast last year. So
yeah.
that's where I share all mental health issues. That's why it's there to raise awareness and strengthen advocates and just help people become who they are. So ever since I've looked at some interesting topics like trauma bonds, how to break free from trauma bonds,
Mm.
depression.
What's
We've looked
that?
at how depression. We've looked at depression and how to overcome depression and just many other topics of concern. So I do have a project that I'm working on.
Yeah.
It's I think, but it still requires funding and more research. It has to do with an emotional tracking
Mm,
device, which will be able to detect the levels of hormones in your body, which
Wow.
probably determine the mode that you are currently going through and what you can do about it to protect yourself from reaching
Okay.
levels that can actually maybe attract a stroke. Because personally, I witnessed a stroke last year during the holiday. My dad suffered a stroke, but
Mm.
praise God, because of the knowledge I had, probably we were able to do some first aid on him, and
Wow.
that really helped a lot. So he didn't get paralyzed. They were able to get him back on track. So yeah, so that's what my podcast is meant for, because most people think mental health is for just certain people, but for me, mental health is everyone's business. And this is
Mm.
why always I go by, my tagline is I'm a firm believer of individual uniqueness, as I believe that duplicating others only deprives the world of you. Why would you want to deprive the world of yourself? Because I believe everyone has a path that is set
Mm.
differently, and all have a purpose to serve. So if you copy what the other person is doing, then who's supposed to serve your
Oh,
purpose? Nobody, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I actually love to explain this using the puzzle, the puzzle jigsaw analogy. You know, when you have a puzzle box, right, and you're asked to solve the puzzle, and you have those pieces to fit there, the jigsaws, and they all have different patterns, right? And you have
Mm.
to fit them on those puzzle spaces, and you can put them there, and each jigsaw can only fit on one puzzle space. So meaning
Mm.
each jigsaw is unique, right? So
Yeah.
imagine in a situation where one jigsaw has already fit its space, and then you bring another jigsaw and put it on top of the other, which has already
Oh,
covered that space.
yeah.
So meaning there'll be a vacancy on the other space, right?
Yes.
So then who's supposed to cover that space?
Mm.
Who? So imagine, so for me, that's a very selfish act. That's why I always tell people, if you can do something that will help develop another person, and then you hold it back, that's the highest level of selfishness you can
Mm.
ever show. Yeah. So
What?
that's where my passion came in.
Yeah.
Come, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, okay. Um, what's your biggest worry about the youth of today?
My biggest worry is
Uh,
that the youth of today like copying each other. You see what is this is why the people older than us are calling us living fake lives and whatnot, because
mm,
the moment we see what another person is doing, we just look at the beauty of it and don't
mm,
want to also embrace the challenges that come along with it. So you see your friend doing well in a business, and then you're like, oh, I think I can actually also start doing that business. When you actually don't know the passion, that you don't know the drive or what propelled them to start that business,
mm,
and it's the motivation behind their business that will keep them strong and firm and persistent regardless of the challenges that are going to come along the way. But you who has just copied and has no motivation for it, you don't even know what the drive is behind that business. What happens to you when a challenge knocks you?
mm.
You'll probably give up, right?
Yes.
You'll not be able to do anything, and then you'll be like, I really just can't do anything. Whatever I try, I don't succeed at what I do. So the
Mm,
problem of the youth today is copying people. So I
mm.
usually tell people that purpose can't be copied. It can't be copied. You can
True.
have a purpose. You can have a purpose that can be aligned with other people's purpose, but there's some uniqueness to yours. There's something you can do different about it. So try to be, creative and just do something differently out of the
Mm,
problems. In fact, it's from the problems that we run away from that we can create solutions for the world that the world is actually looking for today. So
due to, I'm sorry to cut you. Due to time.
uh,
Due to time.
okay.
Is there any, in closing, is there anything that you'd
Yeah.
like to share with us that I didn't ask?
So my take-home message for whoever is listening or whoever this message is going to reach to is that embrace individual uniqueness.
Mm,
Embrace individual uniqueness. You know, it doesn't matter what you are really doing when you have the passion for it. It means there's definitely someone it's meant to reach to out
mm,
there. So, don't you're not supposed to be like another person.
yeah.
Whoever told us that we are supposed to look like other people, we are supposed to do like other. No, yes, you're supposed to be you. So do you for you,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
You're
When it is,
welcome. So yeah, let's
yeah, when
come
it is,
again.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We don't have much
It's
time.
okay.
I'm so sorry we don't have much time. When it is all said and done, Potrine, how would you like to be
Yes.
remembered?
I would love to be remembered to have helped people come out of their darkest moments. I
Hmm.
just want to be that safe space for someone. I want people to be able to come to me and not look at me as someone who can judge them. I think
Hmm.
it's the least we can do in such a very judgmental society. Suspending judgment and just being that listening ear to somebody, and just try to understand and listen from their point of view and see things differently. That helps a lot. It becomes
Hmm.
so fulfilling in life. Imagine for the first time you ever come across someone who understands you and nobody ever gave you a chance to listen to them. I think you
Hmm.
will always be remembered greatly. So spread the love and spread the kindness. That's my message.
Wow. Where can people get all of you on social media?
Mm. Come again?
What's your social handles? You on Facebook, and where can people get all of you on social media?
So they can be able to access my content on my Facebook page, which is Potrine Muzumba page,
Yeah.
where I get to share issues on mental health, and I usually attach my links to my podcast. They are
Mm.
free in the meantime. So while they're still accessible, before I start making money out of them. So while they're still accessible, yeah, people can be able to access them and just have that time and listen to them. And then if they want to listen to them directly, you're able to access them on Spotify or Anchor for podcasters, on Google
Mm.
Podcasts, and yeah, you can be able to access them on those platforms. And the name of the podcast is My Paramount Mental Health Hub Podcast.
Mm. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really would like to host you again. You're so amazing. Keep up the
Please, you
good
can
work.
just call me at any time. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.